maybe we can talk a little bit about the physiology of sleep. As you write in the book, from an evolutionary standpoint, sleep is a very costly behavior. We're losing awareness of our external environment for hours at a time. Obviously earlier in our history as humans, that would have put us at great threat to predators around us. So it stands to reason that there are tremendous benefits here that offset those costs. So can you tell us a little bit about why sleep is necessary, or at least why we think it's necessary from an evolutionary standpoint?
Sure. That's a great question and a fairly complex one, and one to which we, in many respects, didn't really have an answer for till recently. And some people would say we still don't really have a satisfying answer for today.
Mm.
That said, we know that sleep accomplishes many key functions. So it helps regulate insulin. So if you're sleep deprived, even if you sleep just like 4 or 5 hours a night, 4 or 5 days in a row, and we look at your blood sugar levels, you already start showing signs of being pre-diabetic. So it plays a role in that. Right now there's all with the pandemic, all these discussions about vaccines. And, I hear people saying, oh, this one has 95% efficacy and this one is only 87.
Yeah.
But one thing that astounds me is that there's been, yeah, at least uh, here in Canada, but elsewhere, there's been very little discussion about the importance of the sleep you get before any vaccination and afterwards. And so, if you're sleep deprived, these are actually studies done on this, but with other vaccines, not for COVID, for hepatitis and others, but you can have up to half, 50% less antibodies in response
Wow.
to a vaccine that you have if you are even partially sleep deprived before you get vaccinated or after. And this is true even a month after you've been vaccinated. So here we are debating about, 8, 9 percentage points more or less. But you don't sleep well before you get a vaccine or afterwards, that could be cut in half. And there's no discussion. So your
Wow.
immune system and sleep are closely tied together. We know that growth hormones, tissue repair. So there's a lot going on. There's also increasing evidence that while we are awake, we accumulate, if you want, toxins, garbage in our brains that needs to be cleared out. And so it's only fairly recently that scientists have discovered there's this lymphatic or system, a system that sort of goes into the brain and then removes these toxins, including tau proteins, which are important biomarker or contributor to various neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease.
Mm.
And so sleep does a whole bunch of things. So far from it, it's not a homogeneous state. There's lots of different things going on, but also in terms of functions. But probably most remarkably is that many of these things could probably take place while we are awake. It's just we believe more convenient to do so in sleep. And that sleep probably at the base evolved for some other primordial reason. When we say it's convenient, it's sort of like if you do, when office buildings are cleaned or, some kind of shopping center, they're cleaned in the evening. Why? Well, there's few people around, right? It's easier to do.
Right.
But there's nothing that prevents you from cleaning offices and so on in the daytime either.
Mm.
And so the question really becomes, why do you have to be shut down? Like, I mean, in sleep, it's not just that you're relaxing, and these things are going on. You're actively cut off from the external environment. So why would you have to sort of go offline? And one reason we now know that your brain has to go offline is that your brain needs time to make sense of what it has recently experienced, things you have learned, emotions, social aspects, all kinds of things that we learn. And that is this period of, for every, like 3 hours you're awake, your brain needs an hour offline, at least the human brain does,
Mm.
to sort of process and make sense of this information. And we think that consolidating these memories and how we integrate them in things we already know is one of the key things that sleep does in terms of also regulating our emotions. And that maybe the function of dreams ties into this thing. So, sleep is very important. We know that's important for many things, but probably across all species that have sleep, there's a driving fundamental reason why they need to go offline and not just be in a resting state where you quickly can react to some external danger.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And logically, now it makes sense when you say that of why maybe people need 8 hours of sleep, because if they're awake for 16 and your brain needs 2 or 3 hours to process everything it's taken in, well, the math works out where you need roughly 8 hours of sleep. And then the other thing around, like, logically based off of what you just said is, you think about somebody who's growing, a teenager or a child. As you say in the book, it's a lot easier for the body to grow when you're not trying to grow while playing or learning at school or, with the family. So I thought that was interesting too, where it's like, yeah, your body found the right time and the right mix to actually get that done, your growth spurt done. And that's at night. That's why, usually when somebody's going through a growth spurt, it's like, wow, I grew overnight.
Mm.
And at times that's literally true. You can grow, quarter of an inch at key moments of your lifetime at nighttime, particularly during slow wave sleep, where these growth hormones are usually released. So yeah,
Mhm.
so sleep does really many things, and probably the range of functions it accomplishes and to what extent probably varies from one species to another. But what every species has to do is learn from their experiences, learn from their environment, and to make sense, whatever that may mean for the organism. But it's to adapt to your environment, to predict what does this world hold for me and how can I survive in it. And the brain, all brains probably need time off to try to make sense of all this.
Mhm.